Hey, everybody, welcome to the Daily Objective. And today we're going to be discussing a topic that many people are wondering about. Is Christmas racist? Yes. That's all the time we have today. Thank you for joining us. Sorry we didn't have time for Jonathan. See you back here Monday, same time. Thank you. And okay, I'm only joking. Let's talk about this. You know what? I think I can actually steelman the left pretty well. I think I had quite the anti-capitalist, anti-Western civilization streak as a lad. And I think I can sort of reverse engineer where they're coming from. So we're going to get into all types of good stuff today. Please let us know what you think. Leave a like on this video. If you're on YouTube, send us a super chat or you will never be forgiven. Please welcome my co-host today, a guy, he's looking sharp. Did he have a haircut or is he wearing a flashy suit and tie? This guy is out of control. Please welcome a man who might have stolen Eddie Vedder's blazer. It is Jonathan Honig. He looks
Great
like
to be with
corduroy
you
from here.
and our audience from all over the world. Thanks, Rucka. I mean, this is a really interesting story, and it is, as so many of our coverage here on the Daily Objective is, it's kind of ripped from the headlines. We're talking about this story out of, if I'm sharing my correct screen here, out of the Black Lives Matter movement, calling for a boycott of what they call white companies. So, this, as you said, kind of begs the question, well, what about Christmas is racist? Well, they're calling for a boycott of white companies. And it sounded to me kind of like white companies. So I looked into it. No, that's actually the case here. This is the Instagram post from the official. They got a blue check mark. I don't have a blue. I know you. Anyway, I don't have a black one. Black Lives Matter has one, and here they say, skip the Black Friday sales, buy exclusively from Black-owned businesses, move your money out of white corporate banks that finance our oppression, open accounts with Black-owned banks, etc. More of that. So and I have a few Rand quotes and more from this stuff I want to share, but it made me think right off the bat of Rand's famous quote right from the beginning of her incredible article on racism, that racism is the lowest, most crudely primitive form of collectivism. It's judging a man not by his character or actions, by the character of actions of his ancestors. So something as simple as buying a Christmas gift, you can't just go now in this age of collectivism to a store that you like. You have to look at the guy who I guess owns it or the shareholders that own it and say, well, unless they're my color, I can't patronize the store. The headline itself made me want to vomit in my mouth.
Yeah, well, so I think the answer you would get from someone who supports this boycott is, you're white and you kind of take for granted that this system in place is here to benefit yourself. And through a series of both macro and microaggressions and some overt and some covert manifestations of racist policy, you have benefited. You have been educated in a way to succeed in this system. And if blacks are going to overcome the oppression, they're going to need to stop sending their money to the white man's companies. Remember the Dave Chappelle show? There was a very memorable skit in which the U.S. government gave reparations to, African Americans, reparations for slavery. So it was like this mock news report as a skit on the show is, the government has issued $1 trillion to be distributed to blacks throughout the country. And then it shows like what they do with it. And this one buys a truck of Newports, and this one, buy jewelry. So one of the news reporters is saying like, yeah, Tom, we're, our like jewelry and Nike stock is just going through the roof. It seems that these African Americans are breaking their neck in an effort to give the money back to us. So that's kind of the joke in there. Now, in fact, anybody of any race is able to own stock in any company. Most or all very big companies are public, right? That's what it means when anyone can buy a piece of the company. I mean, these companies are here for you to prosper from them if you choose to invest.
Yeah, and thank you, by the way, to Roland, who says, hope I'm not too racist for sending a Eurocentric super chat. This obsession with race. Go back when you read, we'll talk about it in a minute, but, Rand describes race as a barnyard mentality. So just this idea from the get-go, Rucka. I mean, I think we're not too far off in age, perhaps, but just this idea of looking at someone and analyzing them by the color of their skin. It's to me, it reads exactly like a barnyard animal. You'd look at a cow and say, "Oh, this one's too." I only want a white cow or a tall cow. You'd look at it like an animal, but you don't look at a rational human being like that. But they actually have a website. What is this called? Blackxmas.com. Just stupid. But as they am quoting here now, we're dreaming of a Black Xmas. This means no spending with white companies from November 26th to, I mean, it's stupid. And when you scratch beneath the surface, and I think Rand, I believe, talks about this a lot, you kind of read a little bit of their manifesto here. And of course, it's anti-capitalism, right? I mean, collectivism always goes with anti-capitalism. And here's quoting from the website: "We seek not to replicate, excuse me, we seek not to replace white capitalism with black capitalism, but to shake off the call to rampant consumerism and use our dollars intentionally to build black community." Just the whole thing is, as Rand says, just this barnyard looking at people by the color of their skin, not what they want out of life, not what they value, not celebrating the holiday, but perpetuating this thing for the community. The whole thing, it's disgusting.
Okay, but I think somebody might say the place they're coming from is that we live in a racist, institutionally racist system. So would you tell the Jews in Europe or the blacks under Jim Crow, if they're trying to galvanize and march or leave the region to get away from persecution, would you then tell them, hey, stop focusing on race, man, it's disgusting, just be an individual? They would say, yeah, I would like to be an individual, but the system I'm living under is oppressing me. So I think the BLM perspective is that we are now in modern day in America living in a white supremacist system. So, until that's corrected, don't tell me to stop focusing on race.
What I love about trade is Rand, as I'm kind of paraphrasing here, is trade is selfish, and trade is about you. And I think if you're rationally selfish, now when I say you shouldn't care, of course, Iran in some cases, but the fact that you can trade with someone of a different color shouldn't make any difference to you. But look at their whole modus operandi here, Rucka. Now, again, quoting from the site, buying black is the engine of Black Xmas's cooperative economics, right? It is intended to help replenish the black dollar within local communities, keep the dollar circulating for much longer when making purchases at non-black businesses. So they just don't even get the idea of trade. The trade is mutually beneficial. And the more people you have trading, I mean, imagine if they say, oh, well, we're not going to trade with Steve Jobs or because he's not white, he's not black. I mean, it's all about self-sacrifice to the tribe. And that's gross no matter what tribe you're a part of.
Yeah, so capitalism is the system of individuals pursuing their chosen values, and capitalism is the system that brings people together regardless of their race. It brings them together by mutual benefit and consent. It kind of shows you the value of a person when you trade with one another rather than one of you needing to sacrifice for the other. So capitalism is the Western advent, I think, along with the Industrial Revolution and the introduction of political freedom in places like America and parts of Europe came, this system, this sort of de facto capitalism where, individuals are trading and inventing and manufacturing and owning patents to their invention, created this system where people are able to overcome all of their historical grudges and even to put bigotry aside and to just really focus on their bottom line. It gives people a reason to not be racist. And indeed, the problem with the historical treatment of blacks, among other things, is that they were not permitted to participate in the market like their white counterparts. So the fact that now people of all races are able to participate in the market should be celebrated and encouraged rather than people telling one another, let's galvanize along racial lines and only patronize, businesses run by people of the same skin color as ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, my disgust here is not in anything admitting or acknowledging past racism in this country, oftentimes institutional. What my disgust is with these so-called leaders who are perpetuating racism. And Rand talked about this as well back in the virtue of selfishness. He says, quoting now, the overwhelming majority of racists are men who've earned no sense of personal identity, who can claim no individual achievement or distinction, and who seek the illusion of a tribal self-esteem by alleging the inferiority of some other tribe. So that's what I think is so awful about this whole industry, which has come up around obsessing about people's race, and like that is anything to do with who they are as a person, how they can achieve. Thank you, Sammy's board, again for your pounds. Thank you, Mary Aline, who says we need a requirement that all companies post pictures of their CEOs and boards of directors as the entrance to all their stores and on their online sites. Right. I guess that you can and if you've seen enough, I don't even know, Black people today, is there a quota system? It's just creepy. As Rand said, it's looking at people like they're animals, not like they're actual, I don't know, human beings.
Yeah, so Yaron Brook has mentioned a number of times that when one of his kids was born, the nurse asked, was filling out the birth certificate and asked, "What race is your child?" And Yaron was offended by the question, like we're in the Third Reich and we're documenting people's race. And sadly for me, and maybe this is true for you, Jonathan, that's not a surprising, shocking question to get. And it's the sad reality that is commonly done. Shortly after the death of George Floyd, I was getting notifications on, let's say, Postmates, support Black-owned businesses. Like, here's a list of Black-owned businesses if you want to support. I mean, it's absolutely bizarre, but it's not unfamiliar. And yeah,
yeah. And if I think if it was a support of business on any level, I would be somewhat sympathetic. But as I said, when you scratch beneath the surface, and I thank you, Allison, by the way. She says, I'd rather give my money to a business that does good work and has integrity. Integrity is top priority on my list for business, not skin color. Yeah, but they'd call her being selfish because, hey, you bought that coffee from Starbucks and you should have gone to this other one, but don't tell me, Rucka, this isn't anti-capitalist. This is their bank black section of the website here. In a just world, the American dollar wouldn't be a destructive economic cudgel used to compel submission to the capitalist order. So I just don't believe that any of this is about individual rights. It's about, I don't know. To me, it's straight up collectivism. It's viewing people as members of this disgusting racial tribe. And all I say is, I think our friend Jason Hill, I think Jason. He's a friend of mine. He's a good guy. He's an objectivist, and he's talked about how in Jamaica he was considered white because he happens to be light skinned. He came to America, and I was considered Black. It's just, and it doesn't make any difference to even who he is as a person. That's what we should be focusing on. And BLM is disgusting on its face.
It definitely is an anti-capitalist movement, and largely when you look at the various movements that purport to be fighting for racial justice or fighting against racism, unless they're explicitly individualist, and I think like Martin Luther King when he gave his speech saying, judge a man by the content of his character rather than the color of his skin. Paraphrasing, there's an instance of individualism. But when you start to see things about, fight the white dollar and stuff like that, it's pretty clear that this is an attack on capitalism, which is why whenever Black Lives Matter protests would first start happening, I guess around 2014, 2015, you started seeing them blocking off the streets to the shopping malls. Like, what do shopping malls have to do with police brutality? To them, they're directly related. To them, the whole system is meant to oppress the Black man in the street in order to funnel money over into the white-owned businesses, and it's this one giant extravagant system. And they're trying to integrate, they're trying to tie things together, but I think they're doing it very erroneously.
Well, in this case, the fact that it's about Christmas, it's like these guys make Scrooge look like the life of the party. You know, Rand talks about how the best aspect of Christmas, I'm quoting now, is the aspect usually decried by the mystics, the fact that Christmas has been commercialized, the gift buying, you know, she talks about all the create, you know, it's single purpose to give man pleasure. But look what BLM does to something as fun as like, oh, I don't know, Christmas Carol. They're so creative, Rucka. They do parodies too. I'm dreaming. I'm quoting now from their website. Dreaming of a black Christmas. We're dreaming of a black Christmas, much different from the one we know now, where one true mission is a radical vision to see the economy grow, the
The
black
black
economy
economy.
grow. It's just, you know, it's all about, again, self-sacrifice for the tribe. And these mystics, right, these leaders of the movement, they're going to tell you who to sacrifice and how. So anyone with any self-respect should just move away from any of this self-identification as some member of a racial tribe.
Yeah, you know, the sort of the way in which a lot of bad movements end up shooting themselves in the foot is when they try to tell people to renounce their values kind of prematurely. So they're trying to cancel Christmas. They're not going to get a whole lot of support with something like this. They're taking away people's favorite day of the year. So so kind of the good news is this is very unlikely to succeed and very unlikely to resonate and get people, black or any other race, on board. You know, that quote by Ayn Rand about saying something like when you don't have many accomplishments of your own as a person, and you end up kind of aligning yourself with
Yeah.
your race, you know, your extended family, and then declaring that another race is inferior. What we actually see today with a lot of these racist movements is they're not even claiming to be better than any other race. So like BLM is not claiming to be that blacks are better than whites. They just want to be separate. Same with like the alt-right. If the alt-right people, these white nationalists, if they were if to them like accomplishments and achievements and inventions and intellect was the bottom line, they would love the Jews. They would say the Jews are the coolest of all, but obviously they especially despise the Jews, and they're not saying one is better than the other. They just want to be separate. So we're seeing this tribalism cranked up to 10 now, where the argument isn't even that, you know, my race is better than that race, so keep them away. It's just they just want to separate people by race. Separate but equal is basically, well, not maybe not equal, but definitely separate is what they're agitating for. It's especially scary when they're taking something as abhorrent as, you know, white supremacy or black supremacy, and they're even taking out the word supremacy. They just want to galvanize and separate people by race. Bad times are ahead if this is not challenged with a positive alternative like individualism, capitalism. You know, you look at all of the things that like objectivism advocates for, you know, capitalism in politics, rational selfishness in ethics, reason in epistemology, and objective reality in metaphysics. Those are all things that something like BLM and the other irrational crowds are explicitly against. So like you said, BLM, they're against capitalism, they're against selfishness, they're against reason. They consider reason to be a white supremacist code word. And of course, objectivity to them is also a white supremacist code word. So it's very revealing, but we need to be brave enough to see it.
I have to just say, hats off to my TDO co-host here. When I first met Rucka, I never thought that just a few years later he would be quoting very well and applying Rand to all these different elements and something like this. So, and then Nikos yesterday pulled a great quote out of his butt as well. So you're getting it really here, very, very definitely put from our host here at TDO. Roland asks, this is probably for you, Rucka. Is it okay for a white guy to patronize black businesses, or is that racial appropriation?
Well, we are a black business, and yes, you may send us your money. Thank you for that. And thank you for the compliments, Jonathan. You know, I could sort of say I grew up watching you, right? I was like 20, 21 watching you on Fox yelling at the others. I could basically say I was growing up. So you were like the first guy after reading Rand's books. You were like the first guy out there speaking about altruism, speaking about, you know, pro-capitalism the way that Rand does out on TV. So it really means a lot
Well,
coming from you.
Well, it's, we're always saying we're students here, and there's so much to learn from Rand, from each other. And I'll share one more quote that I really like, because what has changed, I think, is now there's all this. I'm always embarrassed to. I mean, race to be obsessing about race to me it's just uncouth. But Rand talked about this years ago. Today, racism is regarded as a crime if practiced by a majority, but paraphrasing now, it's an ethnic pride if claimed by a minority. And there has been this major kind of institutional sponsorship of the Black Lives Matter movement. As you said, it's very cool to like meme around a big black square. Oh, I don't know whether you're just supposed to go hug every black person you see, or if they're, I don't really want to make a joke about it because then it's clipped or something like that. But just racism is disgusting. The same way, like, do you give more feed to this color? Anything other than to judge people by who they are, to judge people based on something is totally out of their control, is their skin color. And I have to say, only objectivism, I think, talks about this. I mean, the so-called left is obsessed with race. And I think even the people on the right, Rucka, there's still this acknowledgement of ethno-tribalism, Judeo-Christian. So I don't believe that the so-called right is pro individualism either. I think there's racism on that side as well. Only individualism is advocated by objectivists.
Yeah, unless someone's advocating for individualism, there's a good chance that sooner or later you're going to hear them start speaking in terms that are quite similar to what BLM is saying here. And we're seeing this nativism emerge all over the place, and it's not the way, folks. Here, get ready for another flashy attempt at integration here. In the Ominous Parallels by Leonard Peikoff, a book that definitely is life-changing, I think. He's scanning for it now in his room full of books. So Leonard Peikoff describes the concentration camps under Germany as a laboratory for the prisoners and guards alike. People were being trained to kind of suspend their own judgment and just follow orders. And even when it comes to them following orders, they would get punished for following orders or rewarded for disobeyment. So just a true unfettered attempt to shut off the human faculty and lower people to a level lower even than animals by disabling their ability to act, to live by cause and effect. And I think, so how does this relate to this? You said, you asked, like, are you supposed to go up and hug every black person you meet? No one actually is telling you explicitly what you're supposed to do. So just the same way that what you're supposed to call black people changes with every decade. And so you're in trouble. You're canceled no matter what you do. You're canceled for following the orders that you're told to do. You're basically, if you go now and patronize a black-owned business, you might be commended for it today, but tomorrow you'll be told you were appropriating their culture. It's these types of irrational philosophies. They set the rules up so that you're always guilty, so that you could never abide by the rules. And it's kind of what you get with a dictatorship, which is what these people ultimately wish to impose, wish to install a dictatorship where it's not just that the rules are tough to follow, it's that they're impossible to follow because they keep changing. Got a super chat coming in hot from Rat Lover in the super chat, 10 pounds. I saw Jonathan on Fox in that video and I love it. I'm going into more debt for this, but I want to help. I love that Jonathan Hoenig on Atlas Shrugged video from 2012. Yeah, wow, you were in that cool movie, Jonathan. That's pretty cool that we get to be reminded of that. I'm just chiding you here. Thank you for the super chat. Please don't go into debt. That's all. That's my advice.
Thank you, Rat Lover. No, appreciate it. Well, I mean, hopefully, and I know that he and so many in our community are getting something out of this, who are probably disgusted as we are by this just obsession with race, treating people, especially because within the community, I mean, we're Ayn Rand Center UK, but we've met and interacted with people from literally all over the world. And for me, it's kind of fun. I mean, I know growing up, when as a young person, maybe in high school or even a little younger, like when you saw somebody like Colin Powell making great achievements or Condoleezza Rice, and there wasn't this whole thing about, oh, they're black. They were just accomplished, successful people. And that, I think, was just been totally turned around for today's young people. It's like race is the only thing they can see. And they should read Rand's essay, and we should all revisit it because she was once again way ahead of her time.
Absolutely. Looks like we got another super chat here. Robert with $2 says, reason is the reason for the season. Yeah, ain't that true? Without, but for reason, nobody would have time to argue about is Christmas racist or not. No one would even understand that vocabulary. We would be too busy grabbing each other's stuff, running away from human and animal predators alike, and acting like complete behemoths.
And think about for how much of human history it was exactly that. One tribe with a certain like skin color or something battling like vicious animals. Thank the Lord, in quotes, that we weren't born during most of human history. It's only, in the last, couple hundred years that we can work together, create trade. I mean, and trade is, on Christmas is the best example of it, Rucka. I mean, we can get almost anything delivered in 2 days on Amazon from anywhere in the world. Chocolate from sweet, Africa, wherever you want to buy from, and like only that's available, only that's possible in a non-racist, individualist society. That's what we should be striving for.
Yeah, and we're only scratching the surface of what's possible. Like we should be in a place where I can just press a button and something from Africa is delivered here, and somebody in Africa gets a notification on their phone. You just made $10, or vice versa. They're getting our products. Everyone all over the world, travel should be quicker. I mean, technology, if allowed to flourish, if people are left liberated, if people are free. You want to talk about liberation, Black liberation, every other type of liberation. Liberate the individuals to live by their own judgment, to trade and produce and own what they produce freely. I mean, technology as well as various the study of humanities and stuff like that would just elevate us. The arts would be flourishing. There's just so many ways in which we could be living better lives. And at the same time, we are very thankful for the relative liberty we have achieved in the last couple hundred years. But it's on quicksand. It's short-lived if we don't if we don't embrace a philosophy that's compatible with this. Because as we see, the philosophical rejection of individualism is coming home to roost, where you're basically laughed out of the room for being an individualist. So the period we refer to as the Enlightenment, it's been canceled, it's been mocked, it's been called white supremacist, or it's been called silly. It's just completely been rejected. We need to bring it back and do it right this time. Speaking of enlightenment, we got Sammy's board again with 99 pence. And Marilyn with $2 says, axial tilt. It's the reason for the season.
Well, and I'll just say, I know we're going to kick it over to Clubhouse very soon, but it reminds me of from one of Miss Rand's Ford Hall forums, and maybe this will be a little tease. If you come to Clubhouse and have the best answer or the right answer, I will give you a $25 Amazon gift card. You have to come with the right answer. Somewhere in one of Miss Rand's Ford Hall forums, she talked about this balkanization. I don't think it's global balkanization, but she says something like, it's all about, I'm paraphrasing now, the Chicano Americans, the Black Americans, the Jewish Americans, the Irish Americans. Do you remember this? And she said something like, oh, and me, I'm just a mongrel or something like that.
I like that. She said she's describing the situation where like you're trying to live in this modern world, and in order to kind of get ahead, you need to be part of this community or that community. Yes. But the only title you can come up with for yourself is mongrel American. And as Rand is giving this speech, she kind of pauses the narrative and says, that's what I am, And it was just a real benevolent and nice moment that the crowd, started cheering for. I don't remember. It was not. I don't think it was balkanization. Well, you said it's not balkanization, global balkanization.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm agreeing with you.
So I guess someone's going to have to answer that. In return, they will get an Amazon gift card.
Yeah, we're going to make it worth
for how much? Hold on, it needs to be worth their time. How much is this gift card for? $1? A white dollar? A white dollar? You're going to give them a white dollar? How much money are they going to get?
I'm not sure of the white dollar to black dollar conversion right now, but they'll get something really supportive for being part of a group. But I love the fact that you remember that moment. It's a really funny, heartwarming moment. And people who say that Rand isn't funny, isn't genuine, hopefully they'll tell us that. Should we kick it over to Clubhouse?
We might as well, although you still have not told the people how much the gift card will be for.
Well, that's why they've got to come to Clubhouse. I think it's going to be more than they have now if they can get the right answer.
Good point. All right, everybody.
That for a tease?
Nice. Yes. Coming up at 7 p.m. UK time, It's the integrating investor with Seth Levine. Why gold no longer hedges inflation. Then at 8 p.m. UK time, it's James Valiant discussing Religion versus America, an essay by Peikoff. Yes, Leonard Peikoff delivered that essay as a speech, if I recall, and it is epic. Then at 10 p.m. UK time, it's TV Talk with Mark Pellegrino, Jax, and Jennifer. They're going to be talking about the show Midnight Mass. And honestly, you have time to binge it now. It's like 6 episodes or something. Just watch it. And Sammy is bored again with 99 pence. Thank you for that. Thank you all for joining us today. This has been a wonderful week and a wonderful day. Thank you, Jonathan, for being here and contributing your knowledge and wisdom and the Amazon gift card to whoever answers the question of which essay that mongrel American remark was made in. See you all on Clubhouse here in a moment, and goodbye.